God's warning, 7 types of people you should never help. According to the Bible, a message of discernment from God. Not everyone deserves your help. That might sound shocking at first, especially as Christians, because aren't we called to love, to give, to serve? Didn't Jesus say, "Give to everyone who asks of you"? Luke 6:30. But here's the truth. While the Bible commands us to be generous, it also warns us to be wise. There are people who will take advantage of your kindness, abuse your generosity, and even drag you into destruction if you're not careful. Think about it. Have you ever helped someone only to realize later that they never changed? They kept making the same mistakes, repeating the same destructive behaviors, and worse yet, they may have even turned against you despite your efforts to help them. Why does this happen? Because not everyone is meant to be helped. Yes, God calls us to be compassionate, but He never calls us to be foolish. There are people in this world whom God Himself warns us about. People whose hearts are hardened, whose actions are wicked, and whose lives are filled with deception, laziness, or entitlement. And if you're not careful, helping them will harm you more than it helps them. In this message, we are going to look at 7 types of people God warns us about in the Bible. People you should never help, no matter how much you feel compelled to. This is not about being unkind. It's about being wise. If God tells us to avoid these people, He is protecting us from unnecessary pain, frustration, and even danger. So, before you give your time, your money, your resources, or even your emotional energy to someone, make sure they are not one of these 7 people. Because when God warns you, He does it for a reason. Number 1, the lazy and irresponsible. Proverbs 6:6-11, 2 Thessalonians 3:10. Let's be real for a moment. We all know someone who refuses to put in the effort, but always has their hand out for help. Maybe it's a family member who constantly borrows money but never pays it back. Maybe it's a friend who refuses to work, but somehow always has enough to party on the weekends. Or maybe it's someone in your church who knows how to ask for help, but never seems to change their circumstances. The Bible has a clear message about this. God does not bless laziness. Look at what 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says. For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. The one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. Did you catch that? Not unwilling to find work. Not unable to work, but unwilling to work. There is a big difference between someone who is struggling but trying and someone who is simply lazy and expects others to take care of them. God is very clear about this in Proverbs 6:6-11, where He tells us to look at the ant, an insect that works hard, prepares for the future, and doesn't need anyone to push it to do the right thing. But a lazy person, they sleep too much, make excuses, and eventually end up in poverty. Now let's make something clear. This is not about refusing to help people in genuine need. If someone is sick, injured, going through a crisis, or truly struggling despite their efforts, we should absolutely step in with compassion. But if someone is lazy and irresponsible, and they refuse to take responsibility for their life, the Bible warns us not to help them. Why? Because helping the lazy actually hurts them. When you keep bailing someone out of their poor decisions, you teach them that they don't need to change. You become their safety net instead of God. You become their provider instead of them learning to trust in God's provision through honest work. So if you have someone in your life who is constantly taking but never putting in the effort, it's time to stop enabling them. Pray for them, encourage them, but let them face the natural consequences of their choices. Sometimes, the best way to help someone is to stop helping them. Number 2, the fool. Proverbs 26:11, Proverbs 14:7, Matthew 7:6. Now, let's talk about the second type of person the Bible warns us against helping, the fool. What exactly is a fool? In today's world, we think of foolishness as someone being silly, reckless, or immature. But in the Bible, a fool is someone who rejects wisdom, refuses correction, and repeatedly makes the same bad choices. Look at what Proverbs 26:11 says, "As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly." That's a strong image, isn't it? A fool is someone who keeps going back to the same mistakes, the same bad habits, and the same destructive behaviors, no matter how many times they've been warned. And here's the problem. When you try to help a fool, they will drag you down with them. Think about it. Have you ever tried to help someone who never listens? You give them advice, you pray for them, you do everything you can to help them, but the moment you turn around, they're right back where they started. And then, when things fall apart, they come back to you asking for more help. Jesus himself warns us about this in Matthew 7:6. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. In other words, when you waste your time, energy, and resources on someone who refuses wisdom, not only will they ignore it, but they may even turn on you. A perfect example of this in the Bible is Nabal in 1 Samuel 25. He was a foolish, arrogant man who refused to listen to reason. When David and his men protected Nabal's flocks, David later asked for some provisions as a gesture of kindness. But instead of being grateful, Nabal insulted David and refused to help. His own wife, Abigail, had to step in to stop disaster from happening. Nabal's foolishness could have cost his entire household their lives. So what does this mean for us? It means that if someone repeatedly ignores wisdom, refuses correction, and never learns from their mistakes, you are not responsible for fixing them. You cannot teach wisdom to someone who doesn't want it. So instead of pouring all your energy into helping a fool, pray for them and step back. Let them learn the hard way, because sometimes that's the only way they'll ever change. Number 3, the ungrateful and entitled. Luke 17:11-19, Proverbs 30:15. Let's be honest. There are few things more frustrating than helping someone who doesn't appreciate it. Have you ever bent over backward to help someone, only for them to act like it was nothing? Maybe they never said thank you. Maybe they acted like they deserved your help. Or worse yet, instead of being grateful, they started expecting even more from you. This is the ungrateful and entitled person, and the Bible warns us about them. Look at Luke 17:11-19. It tells the story of 10 lepers who cried out to Jesus for healing. Jesus, in his mercy, healed them all, but only one came back to thank him. Think about that. 10 men received a miracle. Only one was grateful. What happened to the other 9? They got what they wanted, and they moved on without a second thought. This is how ungrateful and entitled people behave. They take, they demand, they expect, but they never appreciate. And no matter how much you give them, it will never be enough. Proverbs 30:15 says, "The leech has 2 daughters. Give, give," they cry. Ungrateful people are like leeches. They will drain you emotionally, financially, and spiritually, but they will never acknowledge your help. Worse yet, the more you give, the more they demand. And here's the danger. If you keep giving to ungrateful people, they will start treating you like you owe them. Have you ever seen this happen? Maybe you lent someone money, and instead of paying you back, they asked for more. Or maybe you helped a friend in their time of need, but instead of showing gratitude, they acted like your help was expected. That's entitlement, and it's dangerous. So what should you do? First, recognize the pattern. If someone never shows appreciation and only takes, stop enabling them. Jesus himself did not chase after the 9 ungrateful lepers. He didn't run after them saying, "Hey, why didn't you thank me?" No, he let them go. You need to do the same. Give where your help is valued, not where it's expected. And if someone in your life always takes but never appreciates, it's time to stop feeding their entitlement. Number 4, the wicked and evil-hearted. Proverbs 4:14-17, Psalm 1:1-2. Now, this one is serious. The Bible gives a strong warning about associating with wicked and evil-hearted people. And yet, how many times do we ignore that warning? Maybe you've thought, I know they're not a good person, but I just want to help them. Maybe if I show them love, they'll change. They've made mistakes, but I don't want to judge them. Listen carefully. Helping the wicked is not kindness, it's foolishness. Proverbs 4:14-17 says, Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it, do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way. For they cannot rest until they do evil. They are robbed of sleep till they make someone stumble. They eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. Did you catch that? Some people are so deep in wickedness that they literally can't rest unless they are doing evil. And yet, how many times do we try to help these people? You might think you're being kind, but in reality, you're putting yourself in danger. Wicked people are not just sinners who struggle. We all sin. These are people who delight in doing evil, manipulate others, and have no intention of changing. Let me give you a biblical example. King Jehoshaphat and King Ahab, 2 Chronicles 19:2. Jehoshaphat was a good king who followed God, but he made a terrible mistake. He formed an alliance with Ahab, one of the most wicked kings in Israel's history. Ahab was manipulative, deceptive, and led Israel into deep sin. After their alliance, Jehoshaphat was confronted by a prophet who told him, Should you help the wicked and love those who hate the Lord? Because of this, the wrath of the Lord is on you. 2 Chronicles 19:2. In other words, Jehoshaphat's kindness to Ahab brought God's judgment on him. And the same thing can happen to us. When you help the wicked, you become part of their destruction. Maybe you think you're doing a good thing, but in reality, you're aligning yourself with evil. And let's be honest, most of the time, these people don't want to change. So what do? Recognize wickedness for what it is. Stop making excuses for people who delight in sin. Don't be deceived. Evil people know how to manipulate your kindness. Walk away. The Bible is clear. Do not even set foot on the path of the wicked. Yes, God calls us to love. Yes, He calls us to share the gospel. But He never calls us to help, support, or align with people who are committed to wickedness. So if you have someone in your life who is constantly deceitful, manipulative, or takes pleasure in wrongdoing, cut them off. Pray for them from a distance, but do not allow their evil to pull you down. The Bible tells us in Psalm 1:1-2, Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord. If you want God's blessing in your life, you must separate yourself from wickedness. No matter how much you want to help, some people are simply too dangerous to save. Number 5. The habitual liar and deceiver. Proverbs 19:9, John 8:44. Let's talk about something that ruins relationships, destroys trust, and brings nothing but chaos. Lying. We've all dealt with liars. Some lie to get what they want. Some lie to avoid responsibility. And some lie just because it's in their nature. And here's what you need to understand. Helping a liar will always come back to bite you. Proverbs 19:9 says, "A false witness will not go unpunished, and whoever pours out lies will perish." God makes it clear. Liars will face consequences. But if you're constantly bailing them out, covering for them, or believing their excuses, guess what? You'll suffer too. Because liars don't just deceive others. They eventually deceive you. Think about it. Have you ever trusted someone, only to find out later that everything they told you was a lie? Maybe it was a friend who promised they would change but never did. Maybe it was a family member who always played the victim, but never took responsibility for their actions. And no matter how many chances you gave them, they kept lying. Jesus himself gives us a clear warning in John 8:44 when he says, "You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies." Did you catch that? Lying is the devil's language, and if someone is a habitual liar, that means they are walking in the spirit of deception. So why should you be careful about helping them? Liars will drag you into their mess. You might think you're helping, but in reality, you're getting caught up in their web of deception. Liars will destroy your trust. If you keep believing their words without seeing real change, you will end up emotionally drained. Liars will ruin your reputation. If you associate with someone known for lying, people will start doubting you too. So here's the truth. You cannot help someone who refuses to live in the truth. If you keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, they will keep lying. If you keep rescuing them, they will keep deceiving. And one day, you'll realize that you've been enabling a person who never had any intention of changing. God warns us about this for a reason. So if someone in your life habitually lies, manipulates, or twists the truth, it's time to walk away. Pray for them, but do not let their deception pull you into their world of lies. Number 6, the gossip and slanderer. Proverbs 16:28, 1 Timothy 5:13. Let me ask you a question. Do you know someone who can't stop talking about other people? Maybe they always have the latest tea. Maybe they love to expose people's mistakes. Or maybe they act like they're just sharing concerns, when really they're just spreading rumors. That's a gossip, and the Bible strongly warns against them. Proverbs 16:28 says, "A perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends." That's how dangerous gossip is. It can destroy friendships, break families apart, and even divide churches. And here's the truth. If they gossip to you, they will gossip about you. I don't care how trustworthy they seem. I don't care if they say, "I would never say anything about you." The moment you turn your back, you'll be their next topic. But it's not just gossipers we need to watch out for. It's also slanderers. What's the difference? Gossip is when someone spreads secrets or rumors about another person. Slander is when someone spreads lies and false accusations to destroy someone's reputation. And God takes slander very seriously. Look at 1 Timothy 5:13, where Paul warns about certain people in the church. Besides, they get into the habit of being idle and going about from house to house. And not only do they become idlers, but also busybodies who talk nonsense, saying things they ought not to. In other words, some people have nothing better to do than stir up drama. And if you try to help them, you will get caught in their trap. Here's why you should never help a gossip or slanderer. They will use your kindness against you. You might think you're being a good friend by listening to them, but soon they'll drag you into their drama. They will twist your words. You might say one thing, but they will spread a completely different version. They will destroy your peace. Gossipers and slanderers thrive on negativity. They always have something bad to say, and being around them will poison your spirit. So what should you do? Shut it down. If someone starts gossiping, change the subject, or tell them you don't want to hear it. Distance yourself. If someone is constantly talking about others, stop engaging with them. Protect your peace. The Bible says in Proverbs 20:19, a gossip betrays a confidence. So avoid anyone who talks too much. Did you catch that? Avoid them. Not listen to them. Not help them change. Avoid them. Because the truth is, gossipers and slanderers don't want advice. They don't want to be better. They enjoy what they do. And if you're not careful, they will drag you into their sin. So if there's a gossiper in your life, walk away. If there's a slanderer trying to bring others down, don't entertain their words. Because when you refuse to help or engage with them, you protect your peace, your reputation, and your walk with God. Number 7, the ungodly who reject God. Psalm 1:1-6, 2 Corinthians 6:14-15. Now this one might be the hardest to accept. As Christians, we are called to love everyone. We are called to reach the lost, to share the gospel, and to reflect the love of Christ to the world. But there's a difference between sharing God's truth with someone and forming deep connections with those who completely reject Him. Psalm 1:1-2 gives us a powerful warning. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on His law day and night. Did you catch that? God blesses those who refuse to walk with the wicked. But too often, we try to help people who don't just struggle with sin. We all do. They outright reject God. Now, I'm not talking about people who are curious, searching, or questioning their faith. I'm talking about people who are openly rebellious toward God, who mock His name, despise His commandments, and have no desire to change. Maybe you know someone like this. They criticize your faith, yet they still expect you to be there for them. They constantly live in sin and mock Christians for following biblical values. They reject God, but they have no problem asking you for help when life gets tough. And here's the hard truth. When you keep helping people who reject God, you are placing yourself in a dangerous position. 2 Corinthians 6:14-15 warns us, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? Of course, this doesn't mean we should be unkind or refuse to witness to unbelievers. But there is a line that should never be crossed. You cannot help someone who hates the truth. You cannot save someone who rejects salvation. You cannot walk closely with those who are walking in darkness. Because when you do, their darkness will start to dim your light. We see a powerful example of this in the Bible. Judas Iscariot. Judas spent 3 years with Jesus Himself. He witnessed miracles. He heard the truth directly from the Son of God. And yet, he never truly followed Jesus. Instead, he betrayed Him for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus knew from the beginning that Judas's heart was not with Him, yet He still loved him. But when Judas made his choice, Jesus let him go. And sometimes, that's what we have to do. If someone in your life hates God, mocks your faith, or rejects truth, you can pray for them. You can love them from a distance. But you cannot let them pull you away from God. Helping the wrong people will cost you more than you realize. So ask yourself, Are you surrounding yourself with people who strengthen your faith or weaken it? Because if someone constantly rejects God and His truth, they are not your assignment to fix. It's time to step back and let God deal with them. Conclusion: help with wisdom, love with discernment. So there you have it, 7 types of people you should never help. Maybe as you were listening, certain people came to mind. Maybe you realized that you've been helping the wrong people for far too long, and maybe you feel guilty about stepping away. But let me tell you this isn't about being selfish or unkind. It's about obeying God's wisdom. God calls us to love, but He also calls us to be wise. Helping the lazy enables irresponsibility. Helping the fool leads to frustration. Helping the ungrateful will drain you. Helping the wicked brings danger into your life. Helping liars makes you part of their deception. Helping gossipers destroys peace. Helping the ungodly can weaken your faith. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is step away and let people face the consequences of their own actions. And if you struggle with guilt, remember this: even Jesus Himself didn't help everyone. He didn't chase after the ungrateful lepers. He let the rich young ruler walk away. He allowed Judas to make his choice. Because God's love is not about forcing people to change. It's about offering them the truth and letting them decide. So if you have people in your life who fit these descriptions, it's time to stop rescuing them. Pray for them, love them, but let them go. Your job is to be obedient to God, not to fix people who refuse wisdom. And if you've been helping the wrong people, God is giving you a wake-up call today. Choose wisdom, set boundaries, and trust that when you follow God's guidance, you will never regret it. God bless you. And remember, love with wisdom, give with discernment, and always follow God's lead.